All right, Sydney, let's start with you. Give me one thing that you think affects the period of a pendulum. Inertia, I like it. By the way, if you don't have something I put up here, go ahead and add it. Inertia, an excellent start. Lonray, give me another one. Applied force, I like it. All right, Morgan Parra, give me another one. Okay, string. I'm going to call it length of the string. And you know what? Let's put both. Length of the string, and let's put thickness of string too. There we go. Mariah, give me something else. Wind resistance. I like it. That's a good one. Krishan, what you got? Mass is a good one. Good. Shivanj? Gravity? Yes, you guys are nailing them. I love it. Caleb? Momentum? Okay. Good. Okay. Cameron? Any others? Morgan, you have one? Good. Any others? Yeah, Joey. Good. Potential energy. Good. Any others? Keith? Angle. I like it. So like the angle you pull it back to? You guys are doing a good job here. Any others? Amplitude. Get you using your definitions. I like it. Good. This is an excellent list. All right, let's go ahead and jump to the variables. What we're going to do now is we're going to jump to what are we going to measure and what are we going to change. We're trying to figure out what affects the period of a pendulum. So the thing that we're going to measure, the dependent variable, is going to be the period / time. We're ultimately going to look for period, but we're going to measure the time first. Should probably spell the word period correctly. So, what are we going to change? We're going to change the things on our list. Now, you might be looking at this and saying, Mr. B, I would prefer not to do a lab that has 12 things that I have to change. You're welcome. I'm not going to make you do 12. We're going to narrow the list down. Now, if I cross yours out, that does not mean it was bad. It just means that there's a different way to measure it, or it's something that's going to be hard to measure. So, inertia is hard to measure, but it's based off of mass. So let's cross out inertia, and instead, let's focus on mass, because mass is something that we can measure, and that's our first independent variable is mass. Okay? Mass and weight go together, so I'm going to cross out weight. Mass and momentum go together, so I'm going to cross out momentum. Good. All right, applied force. Applied force is definitely something that'll affect it. However, it's really hard to measure because it's hard to be consistent. So we're not going to do that one just because it's going to be hard for us to do. Length of the string, we're definitely going to do. Thickness of the string is also going to be hard to measure, so we're not going to do that one. And length is going to be something that's more interesting anyway. Wind resistance definitely have a factor, but it's going to be constant. So because it's constant, we can ignore it for this one. Okay? Gravity is definitely something we want to test, but gravity is going to be tricky, so I'm going to put a star next to it. We're going to come back to gravity. Potential energy is mgh. We're already talking about mass. We're already talking about gravity. Height is going to be something that's going to be done a little bit differently. And the way we're going to do height is amplitude. Okay? And I'm going to cross out angle just because angle is actually easier to do as amplitude. But they're the same thing. How the angle you pull it back to and the amplitude you pull back are generally close. They're not exactly the same, but they're generally close to each other. Okay, purpose. So part of this lab is to show you how to set up a lab experiment on your own. Because I'm doing this one with you, you're going to do the next one, the one with springs, on your own. So I'm going to show you how to do the independent, dependent variables, how to do the observations, how to do the purpose, about all that stuff. Okay? So here's how you do the purpose. You start out the purpose of every single lab like this. The purpose of the lab is... Okay, so go ahead and start writing this down. Purpose of the lab is. Then it says make sure to include all your independent and dependent variables. So what I say is the purpose of the lab is to determine how, and now I list my independent variables, mass, length, and amplitude. Then I say effect. And then you say your independent or your dependent variable, period. So the purpose of the lab is to determine how mass, length, amplitude, effect, period. So I said make sure to include your independent and dependent variables. So purpose of the lab is to determine how, list your independent variables, affect the dependent variable. There you go. Cruising right along. Hypothesis. For each independent variable, predict the relationship to your dependent variable. And what you're going to say is inversely, directly, proportional, or no effect. And then give a reasoning for your answer. So what I like to do is something like this. I like to list my three variables. So mass, length, amplitude. So what you need to do now is tell me what effect do you think each of these will have. So all you need to do is list what effect you think mass will have. Is it directly proportional, inversely proportional, or no effect? And why you think that. So here's what the three mean. Inversely proportional means as mass goes up, period goes down. Directly proportional means as mass goes up, period goes up. And no effect means as mass goes up, period doesn't change. So if you think mass does have an effect, then what you would say is as I increase the mass, I decrease the period, or whatever you think is going to happen if you think it's inversely proportional. So inversely proportional means as you make it heavier, it swings faster. The period gets smaller. Okay? If it's directly proportional, that means if it gets heavier, you think it slings slower, it takes longer, it has a bigger period. And if you think it's no effect, you think that as you add mass, it doesn't change the pendulum. Pendulum's the same. Okay? Go ahead and do that. Take a minute here. Go ahead and figure out what you're going to do for mass, length, amplitude, what you think the effect's going to be. Okay?